I'm Ken Seng. So today I'm going to share with you the one of the new feature in 10.16, the ZTP using USB. So let's go through to get everyone on the same stage. So let's go through briefly what does it mean by zero-touch provisioning. So for our CX switches, the zero-touch provisioning allows all the switch to configure by themselves when they boot up in factory default stage. Right. So this feature is not new. This feature was in the earlier version, whereby we will be able to configure the switch using DHCP options. And in 10.16, we actually extended the support to allow the user to use USB. So the reason why we want to use USB is because we want to allow the user to be able to provision the switch without any dependency on network services like DHCP or TFTP. Yeah. So the main benefit for this will be you will be able to ship anyone from remote site with a USB stick. And what the user can do is he just need to connect the USB stick to the switch, boot it up, and the switch will be self-configured according to whatever configuration that you configured using the USB stick. So take note, this USB stick are required to plug into the USB port or those switch port that is labeled AUX. For 6300M, you will see this particular AUX port in front on the right-hand side is either vertical or horizontal, depends on model. And for those switches, like for example, CX 10K, the AUX port is actually located at the back of the switch. Yeah, so no matter what model you use, there will be one AUX port. So it's either from the front or at the back. And you cannot use the USB-C port because the USB-C port are used for console, and that port will only have the UART chip on it, so it will not be able to mount the USB drive if you plug it to USB-C port. Click on that, yeah. This ZTP using USB feature is available across all the CX platform. Let's just go in there. Okay, use cases. So these are the 5 use cases that we managed to gather. So feel free to let us know if you can find any more new use cases so that other SE can benefit from there. So number 1, when you want to deploy a new switches at the remote site with no IT staff, so that is where you can ship them the switch together with a USB stick so that they can plug in the USB stick, boot up the switch, and the switch will automatically be configured for you. Or if you are working on some highly secure area where they have a network where they have a switch to be installed into a network that is air-gapped or isolated from outside world, where you have no DHCP or TFTP services on that particular network. So this is also another good use case that you can use the ZTP using USB. Staging center. If you have a big project that you want to stage the switch at one place. So previously, in order for you to do the staging, you need to set up a DHCP or TFTP server to do the ZTP. But with USB stick, you're no longer required to do that. What you need to do is just put a config into the USB stick, plug it in, boot up, and there you go. Another benefit of this ZTP using USB is it eliminates human error, because once you have verified the configuration, once you verify your configuration is working, any switch that provisioned by this USB stick will be able to provision without error. And in ZTP using USB, we have added one feature that the DHCP option will not offer, is we will be able to deploy based on a device type, based on the device SKU number or serial number. Okay, these are some of the detail. So these are the prerequisites when you want to do ZTP using USB. Number one, the switch must be in factory default configuration. Number two, the USB stick must be formatted with the supported file system, ext4, FAT16, FAT32, and you have to connect the USB stick before you boot up the switch. Third is the firmware. If you are, apart from configuration, right, you can also use USB stick to upgrade your firmware as well, or to upgrade or downgrade, to be more specific, because it doesn't compare whether the software is newer or older version than its existing one. He will just overwrite all the image on the switch once you boot up using the ZTP, once you boot up using the USB stick. So the requirement for the firmware image is the file name have to be ended with .swi. For configuration file, the file name have to be ended with .cfg. The location of the file is important. So if you want to provision to a specific switch with this specific serial number, you will need to keep your SWI or CFG file under the folders AOS-CX / followed by the serial number / ZTP folders. If you want to provision a switch with a specific model and part number, then you need to keep your SWI file or CFG file into these folders, the AOS-CX product name _ part number / ZTP. If you place your SWI or CFG file into the AOS-CX ZTP folder, then this image file and the CFG file will be downloaded to any AOS-CX switches. Okay, so on the right side, this is how you get your product name and your part number on if you use the show system command. Okay, another thing to remember this is the priority level. So what happens if you place your file, either the CFG file or SWI file, into all the folders? For example, you place it to the serial number, you place it to the model with the part number, and you place the same file into AOS-CX and ZTP, right? The priority is if there's any conflict, it will always use the serial number first, followed by the model part number, then only he will use the one in ZTP folders. Yeah, and what happens if you have multiple SWI or multiple CFG files? So again, if you do a ls-l on the USB stick, only the first file will be used. Yeah, the first file will be used. So this is the priority for the files. Okay, so these are some of the caveats if you want to use the USB stick to do your ZTP. Number one, USB stick will have the highest priority. So for example, in the event you want to, you already have your DHCP options to do ZTP. As long as you plug in the USB stick, the USB stick provisioning will take over. So your DHCP option will not work. And number two, the ZTP using USB process cannot be configured. Or in a simple term, there's no way for you to enable or disable the ZTP process using USB. The third one is the ZTP process is non-configurable or restartable. The only way to kickstart your ZTP process is to reboot the switch in factory default configuration. Yeah, and ZTP prioritizations, that's what I covered just now. So you need to boot up the switch with factory default, and then they will work in this priority sequence. So USB will always have the highest priority, followed by DHCP, followed by central. And you can use USB ZTP to provision auto VSF, along with auto VSF to ZTP stacks of switches. with VSF. So later on, I will have a demo to explain how this thing works. So now let's look at the workflows on ZTP using USB. So on the upper left, you will see when the switch boot up with factory default config, it will first check whether is there any USB drive connected to the switch, right? So the green arrow means yes, the orange arrow means no. So where the switch, when it doesn't detect any USB connected, then he will continue with the next stage, which is running the ZTP using DHCP. If there is a USB stick connected, that is where he start to check the ZTP folders on the USB, as discussed earlier, and he will check whether is there any SWI files, which is the image file. If there is a SWI file, that's where he will copy the file from USB to the switch, and then he validate the image file, and after that the switch will reboot. If there is no SWI file, then he will skip that and followed by look for the CFG files. And if there is a CFG file, that's where he will then copy the CFG file to the startup config, right? And then, he will copy the CFG file from the USB to both startup and running config. So that is where the configuration will be effective immediately. Okay, some of the troubleshootings. So based on the testing I have, if you are using a MacBook, apart from the format, FAT format, right, you also need to choose the master boot record scheme. If you use other scheme, the files cannot be recognized by the CX. Yeah, so this is one of the requirement if you do it on Mac. So again, the detail I leave it on the slide for you to read. Okay, these are some of the few very useful commands for you to find out about the process on your ZTP. So the first command is show ZTP information. Yeah, so this is where they will tell you where does the ZTP copy the files from on both your SWI or CWG, whether is the copying pass or fail. Another command is you can use show logging. You can do a -R, -D, which stands for daemon, and you will want to see what are the messages that you get, what are the event happen on the ZTP daemon. Okay, these are some of the commonly seen error messages. Yeah, in case your ZTP using USB fails. So most of the time you will see like invalid configuration file, invalid image files. Yeah, and also if the file cannot be recognized, you will see error on the invalid image as well. Okay, so I'll just leave it from here. So to save time, I actually record the entire session on ZTP. So I have 3 demo. So I'll walk you through the entire process, what will happen. So for the demo, I actually have 2 CFG files. One CFG file, I place it into the 6200F R8Q72A. So this is the model of switches that I'm using in my demo. And the configuration is I'm just doing a very simple configuration by configuring the host name of the switch to ZTP 6200F if the ZTP is doing a model specific configuration. And I put the same files into the ZTP folder. This is the generic ZTP folder that this file will be deployed to every AOS-CX switches. And the configuration on the ZTP folder is ZTP-CX for the host name. Okay, let me just go through the demo. So this demo, what I did is I will put both AOS-CX image as well as the configuration in the generic AOS-CX ZTP folders. So this is to show you that if you are deploying image and CFG file and the configuration at the same time, the switch will always do the firmware upgrade first, reboot, then only the configuration will be downloaded. So let me just quickly run through the video. Okay, I will just log into the switch first. I'll do a show version. You can see that now I'm running on 10.16.0001S. This is the current software version running on the CX. And I'm going to mount the USB drive connected into the switch. The show USB file will show you this is the file that I have on my USB stick. So I'm going to upgrade it to 10.16.0001Z from 1S. So I'm going to erase startup config to simulate a factory default state for the switch. So now I'm going to do a reboot. Okay, to save time, I'm going to fast forward. Okay, so now the ZTP process has started and it reboots. Let me just log in. So I just look at the logging messages. You can see that right now the ZTP is in progress. So he's trying to copy the image file. You can see that now the image is downloaded and verifications. And you will see that once the image is downloaded, the switch will reboot. Okay, let me just quickly fast forward. Oops. Oops, sorry, too fast. Yep. Okay, you can see that the switch is now, after they copy the image from the USB stick to the switch, that is where the system will automatically restart it. Okay, again, to save time, you can see that right now is upgraded to 10.16.0001Z from 1S, right? So let me just fast forward again to save time. Okay, I purposely leave it in the login prompt so that you can see the configuration once it has been configured. Yep, you can see that right now the prompt have changed because my configuration actually changed the host name of the switch. Okay, now if you do a show version, you can see the switch right now is upgraded to 0001Z. And if you do a show ZTP information, you can see that the image file and the configuration is downloaded and the status is success. If you do a show log -R, ZTPD, and you will see that these are the event messages. They will change from in progress to success. Okay, let me move on to the next demo. So in this demo, I put my configuration file to both AOS-CX ZTP folder, the generic CX folder, as well as AOS-CX model ZTP folders. So based on the priority, the model ZTP will have higher priority than the AOS-CX ZTP. So let me just quickly. Okay, let me just log in there and I mount a USB drive and I'm going to show you the configuration. So on the generic CX ZTP folder, the host name will be ZTP CX. So these have the lower priority than the model specific configuration. So on the 6200F SKU number, CFG, so the host name is ZTP-6200F. Okay, again, I'm going to use the command erase startup config to simulate a factory default state, and I'm going to do a reboot. Okay, 3 minutes. Again, to save time, I'm going to fast forward. Okay, you will see that the model specific configuration have a high priority than the generic ZTP folder. So that's why the configuration file on the 6200, the model specific folders actually will be the effective configuration. Okay, then I proceed to the third demo. Okay, so in this demo, I'm going to use USB, the ZTP using USB to provision two 6200F switches, and I'm going to configure VSF in this stack of two 6200F switches. This is the configuration that I use. Host name, ZTP 6200F, and there are two additional commands that I put in there. Auto-confirm and VSF start auto stacking. So these two commands will actually kickstart the auto VSF features of the CX. And this is how the demo is set up. On the left side is the conductor. And take note, if you want to provision VSF stacks, you need to plug in the USB stick to the switch that you want to make the switch to be the conductor. Okay. So let me just quickly run the demo. So that is the configuration. And right now I'm on 0001Z. You can see the standby is running on 10.15, yeah, 1005. So I'm going to use the command erase all zeros to reset the switch into factory default. Okay, so right now, let me just fast forward to save time. Oops, erase. Okay. Okay, you can see the conductor is boot up. You can see that right now, the member switch have reboot after joining the VSF stack from the conductor. So let me just quickly fast forward it. And okay, it's coming up. Yeah, because this is a new switch, right? So you need to set up a new password. So as you can see, the switch on the right is now the standby for the VSF stack. And if you do use the command show VSF topology, you will see that the VSF now is been set up. So take note, it depends on number of member you have, because the provision of the VSF is you always set up the connector first, then the second member, then the third member, then the fourth member. So this also means that the more member you have on the VSF stack, the longer time it takes to provision, because it will provision the switch one by one and not in concurrent. Okay, let me quickly skip to. So again, the command show log -r inclusive VSF. So this is where you can see the VSF configuration messages on the log.